once we see there we go.
Well. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a Valentine's Day edition of Morning Coffee Review. And today we've got some special guests just for the occasion, just for all of you, sharing our love for our community and everything that we do here. Good morning, Michael. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Today is Valentine's Day. Time to celebrate with your loved one and have a wonderful day, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about exporting, and we've brought two gentlemen on who decided to jump in the fire of one of these MCRs as Jason and myself ask questions, and they show some of their workflows. Again, this is always about you, the community. So we decided to ask some folks from the community to jump in. And that's kind of the theme this year. We're going to have a ton of folks from the community always joining every now and again to help give their insight in how they utilize Revu to the fullest extent. So that's what it is today. It's all about them. I'll turn this back to Jason and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So today's theme, besides Valentine's, is data, right? Valentine's Day. Got it? So there's so many things you can do with the metadata inside of Revu, and more importantly, what you can do outside of it in Revu. So you're going to make our data in Revu, then we're going to kick it out to other platforms. And that's where these two gentlemen really specialize and do a lot of their workflows. And we're just beyond thrilled to have them here. So first, we're going to start with Doug. We're going to have you introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Vince.
Hey, I'm Doug McLean. A lot of you guys know me, you hear me, you see me. Now you get to see me. Those of you who are at XCon, you got to hopefully see my presentation there, and will be a little bit of that maybe today, but this is what we do. And Vince, who just muted himself.
There we go. No audio, Vince.
No audio. What's going on?
It was working.
We saw you.
Nope.
Not muted, and the mouth is moving, but
I do like the headset though.
Yeah, that's clever. Still nothing. Uh-oh. Did you charge it? Batteries aren't lasting the same way anymore.
We can lip read for Vince. Well, before we were able to hear him, and then his video.
Yeah, it's one or the other. It seems we'll get it figured out.
We'll get there.
Figured out.
This is what we do here. It's all good.
No stress. Take your time, because we can have Doug kick it off first, and then we can introduce you. Yep, cool. That's what we'll do.
One of the things I like to do with my markups, and I think it's really important, is when I'm doing mine, I start thinking how I'm going to export it. And that's what, even when I'm going to make something, I really want to look at it to where, how it's going to be exported. And that's something I really, really want to touch on, because it's, where is there? Nope, not that one.
So Doug, before you start queuing that up, how about let's tell the folks at home what you do every day with Revu.
What I do with it? Well, I'm an architectural millwork estimator. So, and we all know the Revu is not really designed for architectural millwork, but because it's so complex as compared to some of the other trades, and just in the nature, you can make it work. You just have to really customize it a little bit. And I got to thank Vince for something. Vince actually gave me an idea on how to do something about a year ago now. And he made me do extra work, but it actually made our workflows.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can.
We can hear you.
Hey. Great.
Yes, I think Revit has tools for millwork, but Revu doesn't have the tools really for millwork. That's kind of the funky. Yeah. Difference. Vince, introduce yourself.
All right. Yep. I'm Vince. I'm the one having all the problems. I'm based over here in England. I have got my own company, but I primarily work for a groundworks company and brickwork and scaffolding companies. So I must admit, I don't really use Revu very much for brickwork, but I'm trying to do a bit of a setup at the moment where that might become a bit more useful. But I mainly measure different types of groundworks. I'm not quite sure if it's the same kind of thing that you envisage as being groundworks over there, because I think the way the industry works over here is slightly different. So when I say groundworks, we mainly work for house building companies, but the ground worker will do all the civil engineering work, so roads, sewers, all of the house foundations. They do all of the work up to DPC level, driveways, and we are kind of primarily working on schemes of 50 to 300 houses at a time.
Wow.
So, and I've just got various different setups for review, for foundations, for drainage. I've got a lot of profiles, which
That sounds awesome. So you're doing different profiles depending on how close you're getting to each home? Are you working large scale and working?
No, the profiles are mainly for, I want different custom columns.
Okay.
Drainage relies on one set of custom columns, foundations on another set, and you've also got different markups for each, etc. So I need a different profile, otherwise the markup list would just be endless.
Understandable.
Makes sense. Having those different profiles associated with the different workflows for them.
I've also been playing about with like roofing, like roof tiling, carpentry to roofing, and various different bits and pieces like that. So they all need different profiles as well.
And I also saw you took on the challenge of the offset that was asked on one of the questions here. So if you ever needed to go check out Vince's LinkedIn, he posted how to create an offset and kind of different ways of going through and doing that. So if you ever want
that one by mistake,
if you ever want to challenge Vince, maybe, you know, he will, he would love to take it. Maybe. I won't throw you out there that wild, but so we'll kick off with who wants to go first? So we can do rock, paper, scissors.
I'll go. That's
okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we'll have Doug go first, and then we'll have Vince show his workflow after. Just make sure you leave each other with some time for each other's workflows.
So I just got a little bit of disclaimer here. Don't look at the title block as to where this is, because.
So I just want to say this: is your monitor like a 32-inch monitor?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 32.
I was just wondering because your review looks a lot larger than what my review looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I asked for the switch to go to a 32-inch monitor. I mean, we stare at PDFs all day, so we want the monitors here that I can actually work from and use, right? So
yeah, you have a lot of real estate. So this is definitely a selling point right here. Everyone looking.
It is very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. If you didn't notice, because I noticed immediately the screen's larger. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just minimize it. So as you can see down in our markups list, even if as I say I'm setting setting these up to use a takeoff later. For something even as simple as a base cabinet, I'm using an area tool, right? It was told to me a long time ago that the area tool allows you to give a subject and a label. So if you're using something like just a regular poly tool, it doesn't give you that ability. You can only get the subject, you don't get the label. So even if you're not going to use some of the attributes of an area tool, having those two different things you can sort by is always good. And I do apologize. Yes, I work in metric, so y'all can suffer because I work in metric. Okay, it's just because the rest of our software works in metric. All of our drafting is done in metric. All of our CNCs are set up in metric. All of our cut listing programs, and we use Microvellum here. It's all in metric. So we just keep it in metric all the way through. That's the only reason we do it. It just makes sense. course, I do still calculate in square feet because nobody in their right mind works in cubic or in square millimeters. So that's just dumb. But you can see. So if I click on that, on something like this, I've got this set up. This tells me exactly what this is, where it is. There are spaces on this page, so everything is spaced out, so I can sort it that way if I need to. It tells me how wide, how tall, and we can set a depth for it. You have to understand that with an area tool, the length is the perimeter, right? So you have to kind of understand that. It's something that takes a little while to get used to. This tells me what it is, when I made it, what page it's on. And then I've got all my custom columns down here on the end that I had to make. It tells me what the finish is. I'll bring it up a little bit so we can see it. How it's, wait, it should be over there. It's just out of order. There should be a construction column here. It is here. It's just out of order. What the front type is. If there's any static options, what kind of pull we'll put in there, what kind of adjustable shelf system, how many adjustable shelves. I definitely do not need 2,800 of them, but that's just other custom columns that start calculating off of that. So and I've got a couple other ones here for later where they come in if there's any change orders that have to come in here. So like I say, everything I do, I look at this and I'm going, okay, how am I going to export this? And we work through that, right? So to set this up for later steps when I get into Power Query, and which is really where my bread and butter comes in, right?
One question is, do you use layers, Doug?
I do actually. So mine, I don't have them turned on, but all of my markups, I never remember where the silly layers column
Bottom.
is. That's the bookmark. Right, yeah, exactly. So I do have, there's some that come in. All of my tools are buried on what I've just labeled as an estimator markup. If it does come through later and we need to turn them off, that's the way I put them in there. That's all my tools are in there and done that way. We've even started using the status column now. This is an older project. I did about a year ago now. So our statuses now include whether we've upgraded. So this is a base bid model, or if this is this is what we've VE'd this down to something. We've done some, whatever we've done with this, right? We've, qualified something out that we've changed it. So we're trying to play with the status column and see what we can do with that. It's a work in progress.
And Doug, and I would, let me make a note, because there was a comment earlier from Liz about why not use Revit, because it has a lot of that information. What would you say it would be more of learning a new solution or review cost difference compared to that solution? Because this can do what you are able to do. You just have to set it up. What would you say to that?
We could use Revit. Our drafting team has to get on board with that too. We're still, that's one thing I think as a company, Town Millwork needs to get going on, is getting into that aspect of it. And possibly, we've looked at a couple other options. There are programs specifically designed for millwork, but they don't do the same. They don't have the same PDF functionality that Revu has. So it's not designed for millwork, we've made it work. And that just speaks to the customization of it, right? And it did take me a while to customize it appropriately for millwork, but we've made it work.
And now it's an efficient process, would you agree?
It really is.
Okay.
I agree, Liz, you should all be working in metric. and Josh, this is a U.S. government project, by the way. When you notice, it's not in metric, it is an imperial.
Yeah, when I used to do custom windows and doors, a lot of folks on the floor used metric, and then we were using inches, but all of ours would go to metric too. So
yeah, well, all the CNC software machinery that comes out of Europe is all metric, and metric is, it's more accurate for the CNCs.
Yep.
Right. So you can get to the 1/10 of a millimeter with a CNC, but it's really hard to get beyond that. And even especially in wood, there's not really any point in going to, crazy fractions. And that's the other thing. You don't have to deal with fractions. It's all whole numbers or single decimal points, right? Why are we?
Yeah, we don't have to jump on the imperial and metric bandwagon, but yeah, that's definitely one of the things with fabrication.
I'll mix things up here, because when I look at room sizes, I look at it in imperial. I don't look at it in metric. I used to be a carpenter, so I learnt with my dad, who obviously used imperial all the time. If you get a tape measure out here, it's in one side is, top edge is imperial, bottom side's metric. So, and we still get a lot of things like plasterboard is metric, so that's 2.4 by 1.2. But if you buy a sheet of MDF or something like that, apply, it's 8 foot by 4 foot, which is 2.44 by 1.22. So we still kind of have bits of both.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen too in terms of like fabrication. We're going for millimeters and clearances for CNCs, right, and plasma cutters, versus what we're going for with room sizes, larger encompassed areas. I would say would be more imperial.
I've just seen Alex's comment there. Studies still 2 by 4. We work around the other way. It's 4 by 2 with we do 4 by 2, 6 by 3s.
But it's really 3.5 by 1.5 still in real life measurements.
38 by whatever. Yeah,
it's so confusing.
They're nominal numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Except in millwork, where they actually want it 50 by 101. So it drives us all crazy.
So my question here, Doug, would be, once you get all of this data in, right? So you've taken the time to create custom markups, and folks that are looking in and wondering wow, this is so much information that you buried in. And we've done workflows, and we can revisit this at a later date, but he's taken the time to create custom markups that host data. So has a profile that has custom columns, and all of these markups already have pre-associated data to them. And then he's going through and making those markups that are creating those measurements for him to then export out to, you use Power Query, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to,
the first thing that I'll let Vince do the Power Query. He's actually he is really good at it, and it's quite amazing. But the one thing that's really critical that Power Query likes is consistency. So you can make it dynamic. It just takes a lot of extra work to make it dynamic. So one of the really big things that you should do if you're going to be exporting your markups, why all yellow, Alex? It's our color scheme. This is all PLAM, and that's why it's yellow. That's a Town Millwork standard color scheme. So anyway, why the biggest thing is to have a set batch configuration export file. That is important when you're going to be doing your markups. So we actually keep one in the job folder. So if I load that configuration, and I am going to go back to where this is, and I'm going to load that. Once this batch configuration file is loaded, this is going to give me the output that I want and need for my next steps in exactly the way I need it. It's going to give me all of the columns that I want, and doesn't give me the other ones that I don't have any use for in the later steps. We save it, it comes up, it saves it out as a CSV file. It gives it a very specific name, which Power Query likes as well. There's lines in the query that tell me where to look, and that's really important. So all of this stuff, go ahead.
Yeah, so what Doug has done, he's taken the long road, which everything usually does when you're creating a standard, and then it becomes an efficient process moving forward, is he's come in here, grabbed his columns, his filtered and sorted the way he's wanted to for all his exports, and then he's gone to output And then what he's done is he's saved his configuration after he's finished setting his output. And that's just right next to the load. Then he drops it in a folder that then anyone else can load for any job as long as they've copied it and know where the file location is, right? And that creates a standard for everyone moving forward when they're trying to export it out.
Yeah,
and I would assume, are you the one that's only exporting, or other
no,
people?
our whole team does. I mean, all three of our estimating team uses this. And we actually keep it in our template folder for our estimates. This config export file is actually saved there, so it's already there for us. We don't have to worry about it.
Nice.
Right. And that, once I run it, I have to change the share on my screen, and I got to remember how to do that. New share gives me this when it pops up. It's not coming up.
We see it, the Excel.
Yeah, it's not showing on my end. Okay, so it gives me that. Or how come I'm not seeing it? But it gives me that.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's weird. It gives me that large. Maybe
stop share. Here, I can share my screen, and then you can share your screen.
Okay, share. It just, where'd it go?
You just have to look for Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't on my. There we go. Moving over to the other monitor. So it gives me this. Gives me a nice CSV file with all the data that I have, and then I let Power Query do the rest with a push of a couple of buttons.
So this is all the information that you need to get into Power Query to run anything, or however you're running your Power Query, which we'll let Vince show that.
Yeah, you bet.
Great. This is awesome. So he's gone through and customized all of his exports for what he's needed, and appropriated what he needs to have for his Power Query. And he's gone through and verified that Excel is what he needs. Then he's saved that settings for export for later on use. And then now we tag in Vince. Is that correct, Doug?
Yep.
Okay.
I was going to go back on that and just say, like, saving how you export things is very important, because I was chatting with Doug about this yesterday. And if you've got a lot of profiles and you're in the wrong profile, you open the drawing in the wrong profile, and then you want to start exporting, you can run into all sorts of problems. You have the wrong custom columns up, and you have to be able to load all that information back in without trying to close the drawing and restarting everything. So that part of it's quite important. I was going to try and share. I want to share my second screen, so I'm going to see how you do that.
It'll say screen 1 or 2, and then whatever the image is.
Okay. Right.
There we go. We see a site plan.
Okay. Yep. Right. I was going to show, first of all, the different information you can get out of Excel as opposed to just what you're stuck with in Revu. So with exactly the same markups. So this is an example I did kind of last year, and it's for measuring fencing on a new site. So I've done some custom lines, close board fencing, and I've got a couple of different types here. I've got some gates. So if you just use Revu itself, you can do quite a bit on here. So I've got some lengths of fencing. I've put in at what centers I want my fence posts. So then you have a formula in here to work out on each length how many fence posts you need, what the rate for it is, and you can get a total for each fence. You're kind of limited to this kind of display to show what your summaries are. That's a good start, but for me, it's not really useful, because once you get on a big site, I might want to break this site down into plots 1 to 5, 6 to 9, etc., and have all the breakdowns for that. So I'm also kind of just stuck with total prices. It's not very good to present. I then started looking at what you can do with quantity link, but I found that with quantity link, certain things don't work. So this number of posts, because it's worked out on a formula, when you go to quantity link, you can't actually reference that column.
Yeah, quantity link only allows for measurements, unfortunately.
Yeah. So if I wanted to export this to quantity link, all I would get is the 232.99 meters. If I do that, then I can't work out how many posts I need. So quantity link just went out of the window. So I then started. This is another setup, same site. I've just added some more details on here, but you can see down here, it's all the same details. But if you then export that to your CSV file, once you're in Excel, you reference where it saved the CSV file to, you can start adding some standard details. And what happens is, with quantity link, I won't go into all the links at the moment, but I'll bring this up. Everything's on a go slow because I'm sharing.
You're good. And you're across the pond, so it's a little further, right?
So these are the queries I've got set up. This is where the information will be brought in from the Bluebeam CSV. I've got these all labeled up. So what you do with these is, I'm assuming most people know how to use Excel, and a few formulas in here, and you've got a close board fence there. And I've put in here how many hours I'm going to expect a fencer to be working on that, how many hours for a labourer, and it'll generate a labour rate for me, a materials rate, plant rate. So I get a rate for the fencing. So when you bring the information in and start using Power Query, you can resort all the information, reorder it, add new information to it. So where I was saying about like the lengths of fencing, it will find my lengths of fencing, but in Power Query I can work out how many posts I need and all of that information. If I go back to my standard details, if I look here, I'm entering how many posts per meter, but I'm also, I can change the post details. If I change the post details here and how much they cost, everything follows through. So you end up with a priced job.
So let's take a step back and think about how and what we can do with this in terms of what we started with. So you grab what data is coming out. It's all of it, right? Because you started with quantity link.
I import the whole CSV file.
Okay. So you were in Revu, you have all of the data in Revu, and then you exported the CSV file that hosted all of the data from here.
Literally, it's a case of going to CSV. I know that's going to the right file. I can hit OK, and that will be it. You don't need to open the CSV file. It's now saved in the folder. What Excel will do and Power Query will do is go in, find that based on the name, and then drag it into the Excel file.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about where you're saving it. You do, but you already pre-saved it in a location. So you can just hit export save when you're ready to upload the data. And you're using Excel that has a linked to that location of that file that's pulling the metadata. And then you're using Power Query
to then mix it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can actually set Power Query to find a specific file of a specific name. It's all in the file path that you choose to get where you get your data from.
So I've never used Power Query, but I've used Power BI, and that's kind of the same, where you point to a folder structure, it grabs the data, and then brings it in.
Power Query actually works in Excel and Power BI, both.
Okay.
It's what you use to clean up the data to get your reports. So you take the raw data, and then you can run it through Power Query to get the reports that you want and to get the set it up in a manner that you want it to come, so you can use the features of Power BI and Power Pivot in Excel and just a regular Excel table if that's what you want. That's how you clean up the data, right? So Vince has a bunch of queries on the side there.
Yep. So
right. Can we bring up Power Query, or is that too complex?
Easy.
Okay. Because I've never used Power Query, so I would like to see what other data we're bringing in. But this view that we're seeing now is the just initial cache data that you have from the typical Bluebeam export.
Can you see that?
Yep, we see it.
So this is where I bring in the original information. So this is basically this is the markup list.
Okay.
So this is it in its raw format. It's the CSV file, and then you start manipulating it and making it into the table that you want. So
did you have to learn all of these formulas, Vince?
I did, but it's not.
Okay, because I'm over here like, So if I'm going to start learning this, is there a list of formulas we can go through?
No, the best thing you can do is join on to do a quick online class on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are a couple of very good people out there.
Yeah. There's two areas here. I mean, you've got up top, you see your ribbon. So there's a lot that's up there that you can do just by using the ribbon, and then you can see the formula bar right underneath there, and that's the M code. And once you get into the M code, it's a little bit trickier, and you can do some more things with it. But you can learn a lot just by using the user interface.
I would say that when I did this one, I didn't use any M code.
Okay.
All I was doing was using the buttons up here, so you can just choose. You can highlight the columns and choose what you want. So
basically, those are buttons that have code behind them that will give you the code of what it's supposed to do.
So if I highlighted those and just clicked on them, and I right click, I can say I want to remove all the other columns. I want to remove these ones, remove the others. You can change order of them. You can drag and drop them. So there isn't a lot of coding to learn to start with. And if you're doing something like this, it's literally just saying, I've chosen the columns I want to keep, remove all the other columns.
Okay.
You're not actually saying writing code. It's not going to be like Liz's JavaScript.
Yeah, that's why. That's why when I was looking at this, I was kind of scratching my head. I'm like, in terms of me being a novice with this, right?
So you've got like here, you've got filter buttons like you have on Excel. So you can just choose that. And then if you do that, it adds a step in for you. It's all automatic. So it's just stage after stage. So
and then it gives you those are just running orders of what's going to happen, and then you get your export from that. Okay.
Yeah. There are other tables like my pricing table where I was saying where I get the rates from and things like that. That's all in there. But if I close and load that, so what you get out of this is you get a table like this with all of your items on it. But what you can then start doing is this is all done off of formulas. But if I go back to review, what I've done is I've used the label column to allocate it to plots. So that this lot of fencing's in 1 to 5. If I come over here, this fence is in plots 13 to 15, back gardens here. You've got all of that information that's been exported from the markup list. So you might as well use it. So, I jump back here. What you see is, so I've got my closable fence, I've got all the details, but I've got all the plot numbers at the top. So this is a breakdown, plot by plot, of all the fencing, all the values. You can then get, because you've got all the quantities in your table over here, I've got 109 meters of that fencing in plots 1 to 5. So you start generating a lot of information just from the very few markups you've got in Revu.
So you're pulling, so really what you want to do is think of your end step.
Yep.
Then your second step of, okay, what can I do in Power Query?
Yep.
And what do I need to use in Revu would be the last step. Start with Revu.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
you want to know what you want to generate.
Yep.
I mean, I've worked around the other way. I mean, and it takes a lot longer because I start playing with things that I don't know about. And then you start thinking, oh, well, I can generate this bit of information. I can generate another bit of information. So you're kind of going around in a loop, really, just adding bits to it. I mean, I've started, as I said, trying to work on a brickwork takeoff. And there are so many bits that I want to keep adding to it. So I worked out that if I color it, mark up a wall and do a cutout for a window, I can then fill that with another markup. And just by filling that one window, you've got the width, you've got the height, and I can now add things to it. Like I can say, I want a window former to it. I want, it'll work out the lintel length above the window. It'll work out the tray length above the window, and you can work out how many wheat fence and how many this, how much of that you want. And you can do all of that from one markup. So I was going to say this, so you've got these details, but then you can also start generating, because you've put in how many hours you think each item's going to take, you can generate a table saying plots 1 to 5, total hours I need for that fencer on that is 77 hours. I need 72 hours of a labourer. That's all generated from the same information. And I started playing with it a bit more. And
so as you're starting this process, you're able to refine.
Yep,
and learn
you can
more
keep adding and adding. So
adding, correcting, adjusting. Yep.
Close board fencing, I can say that I want so many featherage boards, I want Aris rails, center stumps, and you can add all of this in. And what you get out of it at the end of that is still using the same information that you started with, but then I can have a full list of materials that I want to order. And it's all broken down into plots. So if I want to do plots 1 to 5, I can call off those materials. And to give you an idea of how easy it is once you're set up, so I grab these plots over here, and I go to my my tool chest, close board fence. So I'm doing it in sections like this because this is the way I can calculate the end posts. So let's have a slightly different size fence there. Do that, and we have, come on faster, a gate there and a gate there. So that's my markups done. Now the other week someone was saying, what do you use lasso for? This is what I use the lasso for.
Clever.
There we go.
So I can, well, it will help with it. So, and in my label, I can put plots 28 and 29. That's all of those marked up. So I should.
And before you move, let's have you scroll down a little bit on your properties and show some of the metadata. So just to give a little sneak peek for those folks that may not be at this point yet.
To be honest, I don't need any metadata for this because it's all coming from Excel. So all I need is the length or the quantity. So if I then export this to there, okay, come back over. This is this one. So if I just go refresh all, it's normally quicker.
It's because you're sharing.
Yep.
So all you
Yeah.
did was
Probably.
overwrite the original file that you had in there with the new data, and then this
Yep.
is just going to
So
figure
here
it
you
out.
go. Plots 28 and 29 are now in there. I've got all the values for my different types of fencing. I've got the quantities. I've got more values down here. So it's split, the actual values are split into labor, materials, and plant.
So you basically said quantity link doesn't get what I need. So
Yep.
what I'm doing is using Excel to point to a folder,
Yep.
which has the Excel CSV export that you always re-export to update data. It is a point and click. However, it's going to give you more data because you're also using Power Query to have the data write it correctly.
You can get endless amounts of data. So
And
plot 28's in here. If I come up here, plot 28 and 29 are in here as well.
Yeah, and consistently too. So if you got a consistent data, your output is always going to be the same, and that's so important, right?
It's consistency, okay?
Right.
Which comes down to the type of markups you're using.
Right.
Okay.
See, Vince uses his for this. I actually use mine. Alex or somebody asked the question, but I actually use mine to prepare my data to go into our estimating software. So millwork, with having its various components, there are specific softwares that will, calculate all the different parts of any given product. So that's what I really use Power Query for. And again, so when I started with what does my software need at the end, and then I built it backwards from there to get that, to get what I needed to come out. So there's a lot of stuff that I can do in something. When I did this in my XCOM presentation, you have to understand what that software needs versus what Revu can do, and then how do you get there, right?
Yeah, because your missing puzzle piece will be Power Query, right? Like, okay, exactly. I can do all this in Power Query. Okay, now what? Do I need from Revu?
Yeah, where I could set up Revu to tell me to do a stud, to calculate the number of studs and then the number of panels I would need on something like a die wall, which is like a pony wall, if you don't know the term. But all that information's in my estimating software. Whereas there, all I need to do is tell it the length, the finish, and the construction, and it will do all that. I don't have to go into it and worry about the rest of it. Nor my estimating software can also tell me how long that each component of that die wall is going to take to machine. Revu cannot possibly tell me that. And rather than a manual entry of all of this data at all of this sizes, I just use Revu and its markups and the coding that's there, wash the data, and import that data back into my estimating software. When we ran through this and we first started doing this, and we went from a process of about 4 to 5 days to 20 minutes.
Wow.
Of like just entering that was just the data entry part of it, right? So it's a whole lot faster and a whole lot easier and more consistent. And
And does Power Query come with the MS Suite?
Yes, it's part
Excel.
of Excel. Just go under your data tab. So where Vince has it up right now, under the data tab, right there, and that part right there, that's Power Query right there.
Yep.
Wow.
Just
basically you trim down 4 days of time for a piece of software that now costs per estimate. That now for a software that now costs no more than $400 a year, right?
Right.
You break that down by, let me bring out my calculator here.
3 estimator. Yeah, our savings was insane.
400 divided by 12. $33 a month, plus your MS Suite, which is what, like $8, I think.
Something crazy like that. Yeah.
So
Not
plus
much.
that's $40 a month that you're paying for one employee to have the solution.
Yeah.
It's about $42. We'll round up. My wife would be mad if I rounded down. So I'll round up $42 a month. And then saving the time, multiply that by however much, 4 days of your laborer, right? At whatever cost, your cost savings there and efficiency of how much work you're able to produce out is tremendous, right? So the return on that investment.
It really is. And to give you, Vince, can you want to switch? I'll show you how long. Well, Vince showed you kind of how long one takes. I can, where'd that go?
You were going to say something, Vince?
Yeah, I was going to say I've got examples. Like I've done a setup for measuring the sewers on a housing site, and not only with Revu you get a very clear markup, and you can show exactly what's been measured. Few custom lines you can quite clearly show different types of pipe work that have been measured. It's all there. I did a quick measure on a job for someone just before Christmas, and I asked how long it would normally take them because they didn't have the time. They said kind of 6 to 8 hours, probably 8 hours. And on the setup that I've got, it took 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, Liz hit it dead on in the reduction of human error. And like when you're doing these, as long as your scale is set up, when you're transferring data around, you don't have that option to transpose numbers. We're human. We're all going to transpose the odd number. We're going to type, you're going to make that mistake. You thought it was 56, you type in 65. It's normal. With data transfer, that does not happen. It's just
so you could get a markup wrong.
You could get a markup. If your scale's set wrong, yes, you're going to get something wrong. And if something's wrong at the beginning, you're garbage in, garbage out. That's the way
exactly.
it is. But
versus trying to find that missing link, right? Right. Like, well, was that the wrong number?
You can do various different things. Like on my drainage one, I've got some built-in checks, and it will look to see if the first manhole is deeper or shallower than the second manhole. So, because if it's you can have a warning to say it looks like this drain is running uphill, and you can build that in automatically. Now it might be
where would you build that in at? In Revu
in Power Query?
Okay,
in Power Query. So you build in that check. It might be that you're on a sloping site and the second manhole will be shallower than the first manhole because it's halfway down a hill. But you can build in various different checks throughout the process to make sure that someone's entering the correct details.
Yeah. Before we call it there, I will be doing my XCOM presentation, which gets into this a little bit later, on U Chapter 2 in early June. So if you guys want to log into that webinar, that's when my slot is. Liz is actually up next week. So, right, Liz? I think you're up next week. So, I actually next month. Sorry, I actually get into my whole takeoff process, and I actually delve into Power Query and some of the coding that's in there as well, so you can really see it there if you're on U Chapter 2. If not, come join us because it's a lot of fun over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we had Troy on before, and we don't shy away from showing other folks' community building because that's what we are about here. U Chapter 2 has a forms page and they talk all the time on there. So if you ever have any questions, you can check it out there. Troy just released once a month webinar where he'll be introducing folks like Doug, probably Vince, Liz just said she will be on too, to show their workflows. So please check those out. Again, we're not opposed to building more with the community because this is all about community building and making everyone's lives easier by sharing our knowledge, right?
Absolutely.
I was just going to show this quick one, which I found quite interesting, which was I did a valuation setup. So this is a site layout. and I clean it up.
Whoa. So explain just
whoa.
what you just did, because
We don't show that one very often, and that's a very underutilized trick.
the filter of your
So basically, I start off with a site layout like this. You can go through all your layers, and this is it cleaned up with all these different layers turned off. Just kept on the ones that I wanted. So basically, I can print this out on a sheet of A3 paper when I'm walking around site. It's nice and clear. I know exactly where I am on site, which plots are which.
So let's take a little bit of deeper dive real quick to give an explanation of what happened. This was printed out with layers enabled from whatever solution. So for instance, from AutoCAD, you can print your layers using the print driver from there. Yep.
So it came out, it's an engineering layout. So it's got levels on it. It's got drainage on it. It's got everything on it. So,
and then you're able to create filters in your layers in Revu, which Vince has saved for ones to show visible or not.
Yeah.
And so like layer states in AutoCAD just when it's a PDF.
Yep. Then I've created a valuation setup.
Wow.
So these are all my stages for brickwork on a site. What I've done is created spaces, and then I've put these little templates in each space. And I was working out, well, instead of me going on and entering dates in a spreadsheet and how does this all work? So this is kind of my spreadsheet here, and I'd want to enter these dates in here to get the values to work. And I was working out how can I actually do that directly from Bluebeam. I came up with a little solution. So if I pick these plots here, 19 and 20, and I go back to my spreadsheet, 19 and 20 got no dates in there. So it is currently February 2023. So I've got this little template here by Format Painter. Literally come over here. Color those up. CSV exported. Okay, it's gone to the right place, I hope. Come here. Data. So it's now giving me my dates.
Vince, and this is amazing.
All you're working with this. So I'll ask a question now. This is your table here. This is the only metadata that you've got. Have you got any idea how that works? What information you would use to make that work? You've got you're using the month here, and
it's the color scheme, right?
It is the color scheme, but the color scheme isn't in here for this lot. The color scheme isn't in here
because the only thing that can format paint is the color of what it is, right? There's no metadata that format paints over.
So what you're right where you're going with this. Basically, I'll call this you've got 4 years worth here. So I'll call it the 49 shades of black. So black has got a color of 0000, I think. So what you can do is go into each of these ones here, and for this first one, I'll put 0001. This one's got 2 on the end. So you're actually creating new colors. So when you export that to Excel, this little thing here, I don't know if it'll make it different. No, there is a way you can do this, and it will actually show the color coding. So what you're actually doing when you're exporting to Excel is
show the data, Vince, and that'll show it in the.
Why isn't it showing? So you're doing the 001, 002 because that's the code.
You will not. Yeah, you will not. You will not see the different.
Oh, okay. That's why I was going to ask.
You can't see it. You can't see a difference.
Yeah, you need to go to into your lines.
Yeah.
Your third or fourth step.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Color. So this is the import again. So if you come down here, this is where we just saw a color before. But you can see here, this one ends in 009, 008. And
so
then
what my question is, going back to review, why is the color different than black? Because it says black down there, but it's like a purple or something.
When you're actually looking at you're actually looking at the background color there. That isn't the color you use, it's the color of the text.
So it's the text.
That's the only color that gets exported.
It's not the fill.
No.
Oh, that's what confused me. I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
same.
I keep getting you're saying black, but I don't see black here.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that doesn't export the color there. So it is just the color of the writing.
So you're using the code. That code then is used by Power Query to give you a code in Excel to explain it like at a like low level.
Was a conditional column, Vince? That's what I'm thinking it is. Just
so here I use this one here. So these
oh, you have another table, reference table.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So they just cross-reference. So anything with an 8 coming from Power Query then brings forward the date of the 31st of August. And you can use it like that.
Can you pull up the properties panel and review? I think that's where some questions are going to show how you're actually assigning that value to that black color.
So they just want the color text. So if you click the color text, the font color
there,
yeah, and then go to your custom for it, yeah.
Oh, so you're manually typing in that hex code.
Yeah. Okay. But once you've created this here and you've got them all in there, so I've got 4 years worth there. I can change the dates to suit in Excel, and it's a 2-3 minute thing to change all of them to a new set of dates.
So you've really thought this one through.
This one took about an hour to set up. Once I worked out what I wanted to do. Wow. So
that's
took incredible. You an hour. Let's just put that there. Yeah.
Once you start getting into this sort of thing, you start playing around with it, and you can come up with all sorts of different things.
And this is all done in review, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And using
pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
And using a solution that probably everyone has, which is MS Suite, right?
Yep. That's why we call it the nitrous kit. So once what you take from review, you can really ramp it up using Power Query. I mean, it's Excel on steroids, and I actually find it a lot easier than dealing with Excel formulas, and just the consistency alone is right. And I have mine, and Vince probably has his on a macro, so it's a simple 1-button refresh later on, right? We don't have to sit there and rerun it. We just go boop, and it's done. Takes 10-15 seconds, and it's done.
So with this being more of a now time to end, since we are running a little over, but I think it was well worth the run over. Hopefully either of you can post in the MCR on LinkedIn links to the trainings you suggest for Power Query.
Yep. Not a problem.
That way people like myself, anyone else that's looking to learn about Power Query, in addition to their Excel workflow, can start coming up with some solutions as well. Jason, I'll let you finish it up from here.
Yeah, I just, today's episode was all about, sort of pushing the boundaries of what we can do with the data that's coming out at review. And we also pushed the borders of your MCR presenters today by having international spectacle today for Valentine's Day. So with that,
the Commonwealth today, right?
Yes, we have representation from Canada and England.
That's right. And I can't thank you guys enough. That was eye-opening, to say the least. I always love to see new workflows and see the minds get blown with you gentlemen showing off what you're doing. And if you've got anybody out there in the community, if you've got ideas of what you think you want review to do, let's figure it out. That's what we like to do. And that's what the whole community is here to help you with. So with that said, we'll see you next week. I forgot what our topic will be, but it'll be fun.
and thank you, Doug. Thank you, Vince, for jumping on. if either of you want to come back and show off again, if anyone else wanted more info from them as well, please leave it in the question box. We'll get it to these gentlemen. We appreciate both of you for always jumping on in the morning coffee review and joining Jason and myself. You two have definitely taken this to another level than him or myself could have possibly thought of. So thank you very much for pushing the edge of this. And again, we're always about building the community. So feel free to reach out to us or these gentlemen on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll be happy to email you back or message you.
Not a problem.
Great. Thank you all.
Okay.
Have a good,
Thanks.
wonderful Valentine's Day.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.